Okay, welcome everyone to this week's IPLD Dev meeting. It's February the 3rd, 2020. And as every week, we go through the stuff that we've done last week and things that we might do next week, and then discuss any open items we have. Or we also take the time to welcome new people to this call, and they can briefly talk about like who they are, why they're here, if they want to. I guess let's start with this first because that's the exciting part, and then we can go over the updates. So, yeah. Anyone wants to start? Tim, perhaps?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm back helping again, this time on IPLD, and making selectors a lot more usable, some cool stuff. I don't know, I guess for those that don't know me, I have a lot of experience in Node.js and just networks and content addressable stuff in general. One of my fun projects was porting Git to JavaScript.
Cool. Yeah. Then another new face is Kevin.
Yes, hi. Hello everybody. My name is Kevin Ray. I'm a member of the projects org within Protocol Labs, and I'm just here to be a fly on the wall and just kind of listen as I get up to speed in the overall company. And my role is just kind of like unifying projects, plugging in where I could help, and I'm a project manager by trade. So any way that I can help out with the team, take on any action items in that kind of domain is why I'm here. But mostly I'm just gonna be muted, smiling, listening. Thanks for having me.
Great, thanks. And we have another kind of new face. Well, he's been here before, I think. But Irakli, do you want to give a quick intro for the other people?
Hi, I'm Irakli. Usually go by Gozala on internets. I missed the beginning of the meeting, so I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I'm interested in Rust IPLD as a way to practice some Rust. So I'm here to hear what's new and how to help. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah. So next we go over the stuff that we've worked on. I again paste the hack pad into the chat room where we put the meeting notes, and then I probably start with myself. So last week I've spent a lot of time on Rust and IPLD. And I basically make sure that the Rust IPLD stuff is actually becoming a thing. The big news is that the repository linked also in the notes, the Rust IPLD one, there was already an existing effort by some community member. And now my plan is to really base our IPLD, Rust IPLD efforts on those things because, well, it's already there. I looked over it. It looks pretty good. Surely need some changes, but why not doing them directly there? I also got already admin access on their repository, so if anyone wants to be added, this shouldn't be a big deal. And the other thing is, it's more of news, is that the Rust Filecoin implementation is now open source, and there was also a press release about it. So now we can finally openly talk about it in the public calls. And why I mention it is because Filecoin is also heavily using IPLD, and there's definitely overlap between the IPLD efforts as well as Filecoin. And also, we already see pull requests from the implementers of the Rust Filecoin stuff on the multi-format stuff. And basically, I spend my time on getting all those people under one umbrella and basically making sure we don't have double efforts, but really working together on the whole thing. That's pretty exciting. So, yeah. That's pretty much what I did last week. Next one on my list is Eric. Or do you want to go have someone else go first?
Yeah, it's okay. I didn't prepare my report super in advance this time. But so I continue to be on a performance rabbit hole in all times, in all places. Spent a little time with Peter talking about how to go fast this week, which was fun. I'm trying to make that into...
You're trying to say you sent me as well on a speed rabbit hole. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome if that's not sarcastic. I'm trying to get more reusable notes out of that as well, but sort of just slowly broiling them down. So mostly I'm still working on writing a bunch of code to bring the new node assembler interfaces in Golang towards the core. And this takes a decent amount of work because it is a very central interface. At this point, I am pretty much fully committed to all of these things because the benchmark said it was good. I'm working on re-implementing the package called IPLD free, which is basically what users of the library use when they don't have any other node implementation in mind already. So like all of our stuff with selectors and, well, right now, basically everything until CodeGen comes around uses this. So I'm rewriting all of those to see all of the performance gains anticipated with these new interfaces, and really kind of going a bit wild with the benchmarks on this and making sure like every allocation is perfectly amortized. And so this involves a surprisingly large number of generated types. This week I had a little bit of a side quest, making sure I'm not like emitting overly large binary assembly results. It's fine, but it is something to keep an eye on. So I'm going to try to finish up the new IPLD packages, or the new IPLD free implementation packages in like this next week, and then try to start merging things into the core, which will be fun. At that point, I'm probably going to have to poke Hannah and anyone else in the ecosystem who's depending on these interfaces, because there's a couple other libraries that'll start to need to propagate changes, and that'll be fun. But that's at least another week, I think. So that's it for me.
Thanks. Next one on my list is Rod.
Okay. Mine's been fairly simple and not super high bandwidth, so just some spec work. I'm just in the process of merging the car spec, which represents the current state of the car format, so that we can then start work on a version 2, which I think Michael's going to be raising a bit of in his. And the DAG CBOR one is still, I think the DAG CBOR spec changes are ready to merge. It just raises a lot more questions than it solves, because it introduces suggested constraints that none of the current implementations have. So we'll need to think about what to do about that. But I think we should merge it, because it is status. What is it? It's not suggested. It's prescriptive, not descriptive. So that should be okay. And while I'm working on, the other thing I'm working on is CBOR, new CBOR stuff in JavaScript. And I'm trying to take this into account as well as performance improvements. And that's an interesting journey. So how do we push down this strictness all the way into the parser and encoder? And how do we maintain performance while doing that? It's raises lots of interesting stuff. But I think the DAG CBOR changes that the pull request is probably ready to merge as well, and then we can go about revisiting the implementations and say, well, what are we doing about this? And should we start rejecting these things? And can we even start rejecting them with the current coding we have? Anyway, that's me. Nothing major other than that.
All right. As I see that Mike wants to go last, does anyone else have any updates someone wants to share? No, it doesn't seem like. Then next up is Michael.
Yeah, sorry, I had to find the mute button there. Okay, so a couple of quick things. One is that we surfaced some more constraints on car files, in particular. Filecoin, apparently like the Filecoin kind of ecosystem layer has started to make assumptions about there only being a single root inside of the car files. So for this big data project that we've been working on, we have to kind of back up now, rewrite a bunch of stuff, throw away a lot of work. And in particular, it's not as simple as just saying, oh, okay, we'll take all the old roots that we're adding and then just like stick them in one CBOR block together. Because the way the allocator was written, it was only based on size of the data going into the car file and not based on the number of file entries in the car file. So there are some that would end up being like 3 megabytes of CBOR in a block. So we can't do that. So anyway, that's all getting rewritten this week. A few things that I wanted to bring up. One is we started to surface more requirements for a future version of the car spec. So in particular, we want to be able to have all of the information that you would need to deterministically reconstruct a car file accessible in its header. So that's all of the root CIDs and the selectors that were to create those. If you don't have all of that information, then we would just consider that car file non-deterministic. But if you do have it, then it should be deterministic. This brings up like an interesting kind of maybe cool thing that we could think about doing, which is if we could have a way for a selector to be written that runs through a graph and then says, okay, this point in the graph is actually a selector itself, go run that. Then we could make essentially the new header for car files a selector, like a multi-selector basically, for all of the data inside of it. And so you would be able to just take the CID of the root, and that would be all you would need to pass into a selector engine in order to reconstruct the entire thing. And it brings up some really interesting possibilities where you could literally take any point in a graph and pair it with a selector and say, oh no, go and now create a car file out of this. And if you hit a point in a graph where you have a selector and a CID and you have a bunch of known car files, you would actually know if you had already generated that or not based on the hash. So there's some really kind of cool stuff that we can do if we add that little bit of syntax. I can't tell if I thought of this or if Eric thought of this when he first designed them and that's why they're designed that way. Probably. Eric tends to be ahead of me. So them being nice CBOR blocks is probably intended that you can, and Eric always had this turtles all the way down mentality about all this stuff. So probably thought about this already. But yeah, we should spec out what that looks like so that the next version of the car header format is not out of line at all with selectors and it's just in fact a valid selector. It'd be great. Okay. There's still a PR open for modest changes to the data model spec about determinism. I'd like to get this merged. I think the only remaining objection is Eric. So if you could look at that now, it's changed since the last time that you looked at it. So just poke at it one last time, and if you like it, then we'll get that merged. This week, I've got to finalize everybody's reviews. And yeah, I got to rewrite that allocator. And I'm hoping to find a little bit of time to start poking at this idea that I have called web repo, which is basically just an interface for an IPLD storage layer that is designed not to look like a database, but to look more like a Git repository. So you store blocks in it, you tag things, you can compare those tags, you can sync those tags, you can do things with them. So that's the way that I've been thinking about that and want to start poking at that as soon as I can. But we'll see. I've got a lot of other code on my plate right now. Also, we should do a team week this year. We've been sort of tentatively targeting Q2. I don't know. We haven't talked. We talked a lot about wanting to do another team week. We haven't talked about what we want to cover in the team week though. We're in a group where we're actually pretty good at working remotely, so we don't have like last time we had a bunch of things that we really wanted to get in aligned about, and now I feel like we don't have such an obvious list. So maybe what we should start thinking about maybe in these meetings once a week and just kind of batting around ideas are things that we would want to cover in a team week and sync up about and really get on the same page while we're all together in the same room. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Yeah, anything else anyone wants to talk about?
I got an awesome t-shirt that was them. I'm going to show it because it's just too good.
Was that the official conference shirt?
That's all I have.
Cool. Yeah. All right, then I guess that's all for now. And we were pretty quick. That's good. And we see us again next week. Or everyone who, still wants to hang out for the after party if there's anything we need to discuss. Can't discuss publicly, but I don't think there's anything this week. But yeah. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.